I'm not saying MacGyver's first season was bad. Some of those very early episodes are really entertaining. I've talked about a few of them already in this series. And also, I mean, the whole show is bad. That's why I love it. That's the point of this video series. However, it did take around half of that first season for the creators of MacGyver to dial it in and decide exactly what kind of show they wanted it to be. There is one episode in particular where it feels like they figured it out. It's not the first good episode of MacGyver, but for me, looking back now, having seen every episode, it is the point at which the series starts to feel like itself. The point at which MacGyver becomes MacGyver. It's episode 12 of season 1, and it's called Deathlock. We begin with a staple of the show's first season, the opening gambit, a cold open with no connection to the plot of the rest of the episode, included to kick things off on an exciting note and show off what MacGyver does best. This is maybe the best, or at least the most well-remembered of all the opening gambits. MacGyver is stuck in East Berlin. Remember when there was an East Berlin and a West Berlin? Remember when there was an East and West Germany? And then David Hasselhoff single-handedly tore down the Berlin Wall with music and Germany was reunited, but Ronald Reagan took all the credit? We should have impeached him for that. Anyway, MacGyver is trying to escape East Berlin. What was he doing in East Berlin to begin with? I don't know. MacGyver shit. It doesn't matter. He's hiding in a coffin, which is being allowed to cross the border so it can be received by the supposedly mourning relatives on the other side. But the East German guards get suspicious, so MacGyver's pallbearers have to go to Plan B, which consists of chucking the coffin off the bridge they're crossing and into the water. When the coffin hits the water, MacGyver presses a button on a remote control, and the top and sides of the coffin blow off to reveal a jet ski. It's one of those coffins that converts to a jet ski. As the East German guards hopelessly fire their guns at him, MacGyver zooms away to safety, even adding a taunting little spin just to give those commies the finger on his way out. It's some of the most audaciously ridiculous bullshit I've ever seen on television, and I could not possibly love it more. Okay, that was fun, but it's time to get serious. You can tell because we're in a dark room, and 3 sinister-looking old white guys are sitting in the shadows. They're listening to this dude, Quail, who has a plan to kill MacGyver. This is a second and last chance for Quail, since apparently at some point in the past he failed to take out MacGyver. Quail assures the Kryptonian Council that this time he's thought of everything, and there will be no escape for MacGyver. Oh, one of the unholy 3 mentioned something about needing to neutralize the information MacGyver stole in East Berlin, so there's a little tiny connection between the opening gambit and the main plot in this one, okay? I forgot. Give me a break. MacGyver returns to the United States from his little mission in Berlin, and he's no sooner back in town than he's being stalked by these doofuses who are up to no good and being obvious as shit about it. Fortunately, this woman, Karen, pulls up in a red sports car pretending to be MacGyver's girlfriend and drives him away before the doofuses can do anything. She explains that she was sent by MacGyver's boss, Pete Thornton, and that she's supposed to take him to a special safe house to be debriefed. They arrive at the safe house, and it's spacious. I wonder how much they're paying to rent Wayne Manor for the weekend. As MacGyver and Karen enter the house, we cut to Quail watching them on a bank of monitors in some kind of secret supervillain lair. He's all, "Welcome, MacGyver. So good to see you again," while trying mightily to suppress a shit-eating grin. Pete, making only his second appearance in the series, though it's Dana Elkar's third because he played a different character in the pilot episode, greets MacGyver, thanks him for getting that super important info out of East Berlin, and informs him that their agency has a mole. Somehow, MacGyver's mission and what he was stealing from East Berlin leaked. So Pete's going to find and plug that leak. And while he's working on that, this operation here at this off-the-books safe house is under his personal supervision. Nobody else even knows where they are. Nobody but Quail, that is. They go into another room, the library, where MacGyver meets Mrs. Chung, the cryptographer Pete has brought in to decode the microfilm MacGyver brought from Berlin. But before Mrs. Chung can get started, her computer turns itself on and then explodes, and Quail's voice speaks to them through hidden speakers. "Hello, Peter," he says.
"Trick or treat, it's April Fool's."
So which is it? Those are almost 7 months apart. It's going to be pretty hard to take you seriously if you can't even get your prank-based holidays straight, Quail. Quail flips some switches on his control panel and bars slide across all the windows. Mrs. Chung tries to make a run for it, but when she grabs the doorknob, a needle juts out and pokes her, and she falls unconscious. Quail appears on a TV and says, "Don't worry, she's just sedated. Hi, MacGyver, remember me?" Pete doesn't recognize Quail, so MacGyver fills him in on their previous run-in. Apparently, Quail was trying to steal some military equipment, so MacGyver stole it back, and that's what got Quail in trouble with the Tribunal of Spookiness. It's not the microfilm from Berlin Quail is after. He's supposed to destroy it, but the real target here is MacGyver. Quail urges Mac, Pete, and Karen to try and escape, though he cautions them that no matter what they try, they're bound to lose. This is his game, his board, his rules. Pete picks up a phone and tries to call for help, but the phone disintegrates in his hand. Jesus, Pete, I know you're nervous, but don't hold the fucking thing so tight. It's only made of plastic. Mac, Pete, and Karen head for the door where they came in and notice that Karen's car is gone. Mac cautiously opens the door. No poison needles, no booby traps. It still seems too good to be true, so Mac and Pete grab a nearby suit of armor and push it out the door. Sure enough, a machine gun equipped with a motion sensor opens fire. Okay, so no leaving that way. MacGyver has an idea, though. He gathers up the pieces of the suit of armor in a sheet, and they all head for the kitchen. In the kitchen, MacGyver has everyone turn on as many appliances as they can find, and he also attaches a metal bowl to the base of a blender or something so that it spins around like a radio antenna. Doing this jams the radio frequency of Quail's surveillance cameras, so the kitchen feed shows him nothing but static. That gives Mac, Pete, and Karen a little privacy to plot their escape. Pete thinks their best bet is to call for help using his radio phone, which he left back in the library with Mrs. Chung. Before Pete ventures out, he and MacGyver do their cute little secret handshake.
Stay low, move fast, think smart.
And if you go, take company along. Get out of here.
They are so adorable. Oh my God. Pete slips into a room behind a hidden door in the library and dials a number on his radio phone, and then the best thing in the episode happens.
Deputy Chief Peter Thornton. Red, red. Repeat. Red, red. Details.
But I already know the details, Peter.
Isn't it great that Pete's 1980s radio phone has a little TV built into the lid so that Quail could do his shocking appearance there? What a drama king. Quail is what happens when theater kids grow up embittered from lack of parental encouragement and turn to international crime. If your kid wants to apply to the School for the Arts, let him do it. You want him to become a terrorist with a bad mustache? Back in the kitchen, Karen says, well, I guess it's my turn to go distract Quail, which is an odd thing to say since Pete's mission wasn't to distract Quail, it was to get his radio phone and call for help. And MacGyver and Karen don't know whether Pete succeeded or not. For all they know, Pete did call for help and the cavalry is on the way, and the best thing for them to do is just sit tight. But now all of a sudden Karen's like, my turn to leave the kitchen and go off somewhere by myself? Seems suspicious to me, is all I'm saying. MacGyver gives Karen a kiss for luck, and she leaves. After she's gone, he begins assembling something. We don't see what it is yet, but MacGyver's voiceover tells us that it's something to draw Quail's fire. Meanwhile, Karen goes straight to Quail's control room and knocks on the door, and he lets her in and greets her warmly and says, "It's going rather well, don't you think?" Aha! I knew there was something wrong about her. I suspected it from the moment after I watched this scene for the first time like 40 years ago. Karen is working with Quail, but she apparently didn't know the details of what Quail was planning, and she's not comfortable with this house full of murder thing. Quail's like, you've got to let me have a little fun.
But this MacGyver is very smart, and Thornton is no dummy either.
Yes, that's what makes you my, what shall I call you? My perfect collaborator in this delicious charade.
Wouldn't he have made a great villain for the 1960s Batman show? He'd be the only one who didn't need a gimmick. He could just be his erudite yet sleazy self, taunting the dynamic duo on video monitors as they made their way through a series of death traps. I mean, shit, he's right there already. He's gonna find the entrance to the Batcave eventually anyway. Quail reminds Karen of someone close to her that she should be worried about. then gives her a walkie-talkie and sends her back out to spy on MacGyver and report back to him exactly what MacGyver is doing. Karen peeks through a peephole hidden in a painting and sees MacGyver, conveniently positioned in the center of the peephole's rather narrow field of view, attaching the head of the suit of armor to the top of a wheeled cart on which he has also rigged a battery-operated motor. Karen relays this info to Quail over the walkie-talkie. MacGyver takes the hinges off the back kitchen door and shoves it open, then starts the motor on his cart and pushes it outside. The moving cart immediately draws fire from the automatic machine guns, and MacGyver follows along behind it, keeping low to avoid getting shot. When he's gotten far enough away from the house, Mac pushes the cart ahead, and when the guns turn to continue shooting at it, MacGyver makes a run for it, diving over the hedge and escaping. Yay! MacGyver got out! And with 15 minutes to spare in the episode, too. Nice job, Mac. What are you going to do with the extra time? Is there a Baskin-Robbins nearby? I think you've earned an ice cream. Except MacGyver hasn't escaped after all, because he still has a conscience. Quail talks to him over the speakers and threatens to kill Pete if he doesn't come back to the house. Quail turns off the machine guns, and MacGyver goes back inside. Quail orders Karen to meet up with MacGyver and to get the microfilm that Quail is supposed to destroy. More reluctant to go along with this than ever, but feeling that she has no choice, Karen does as Quail says. They find Pete on the floor in the library. He's unconscious, but alive. MacGyver thinks Pete and Mrs. Chung will be okay if they can get medical attention soon. Back to the kitchen, where MacGyver has a new plan. Step 1, grab Karen's walkie-talkie and reveal that he knows she's working with Quail. He's suspected her ever since she came to his rescue before they came to the safe house. That whole scenario just seemed too easy. Mac asks Karen why she's working with Quail, why she's betraying her country. She says she's not doing it for money. The bad guys have her brother, and they're going to kill him if she doesn't help Quail get that microfilm that MacGyver stole. MacGyver convinces Karen to turn on Quail and help him instead. If they capture Quail, they can trade him for Karen's brother. And if that doesn't work, MacGyver promises to rescue Karen's brother himself. So Karen was pretending to be on MacGyver's side while secretly working with Quail, and now she's pretending to still be on Quail's side while secretly working with MacGyver, which makes her a triple agent? A double agent once removed? I can never keep it straight. Anyway, MacGyver's new plan is to find a way to sneak into the basement without Quail knowing where they are and cut the power to the house so that Quail's surveillance system will be useless to him. As soon as they leave the kitchen, Quail targets them with automatic machine guns that were concealed behind panels in the wall. He tells Karen, "Sorry, my dear, I'll try to arrange a posthumous medal." So much for being a double agent once removed, I guess. Fortunately for MacGyver and Karen, even when he's shooting at them with remote-controlled machine guns, Quail is still more interested in toying with them than killing them. That gives MacGyver the chance to grab an empty planter and fill it with baking soda and vinegar he swiped from the kitchen, creating an instant smoke screen, which he and Karen use to slip away through a secret passage that Karen knows about into an unmonitored back staircase. Karen tells MacGyver that she knows where Quail is, but he's behind a heavy door and protected by impenetrable security. MacGyver says, "Okay, then we'll have to draw him out." On their way back to the electrical room, Mac and Karen stack up a bunch of spare metal tubing and ductwork to block the path through, so they'll be able to hear when Quail is approaching. Once they reach the electrical room, MacGyver begins tracing all the wires leading to Quail's control room, while Karen stacks up junk in front of the door so that when Quail enters, he'll only be able to move in one direction. MacGyver sets up a mirror so he can see Quail's position in the room without Quail seeing him. Then he rigs a water tank to spray with the tug of a cord. MacGyver has Christmas treed the wiring so that when he throws the main switch, it will kill the power in Quail's room, but leave the lights on in the hallway and here in the electrical room. Mac throws the switch. When the lights go out in his control room, Quail, already frustrated because he can't find MacGyver or Karen on any of his surveillance cameras, loads his Uzi and ventures out. He marches down the hall, furiously smashes through the obstacle Mac and Karen arranged for him, shoots a few holes in the door to the electrical room, then kicks the door open and steps through, brandishing his Uzi. MacGyver needs Quail to be standing in one particular spot for his water cannon attack to work, but Quail doesn't cooperate and keeps moving back and forth. He catches Karen reaching up to adjust the mirror and orders Karen and MacGyver out of hiding. Karen rushes up to Quail like, "Thank God you're here. MacGyver was setting a trap, but you and me, we're on the same side. Right, Quail?" And then, just when you probably thought Quail was all out of exquisitely cheesy villainous one-liners, he says this shit.
I'm a geometric rarity, my dear. There's only one side. Myself.
So he's a sphere? I don't think those are super rare. Though keep in mind, as I say that I did fail geometry in high school. But look at me now! Anyway, a line like that from Quail demands an equally awesome comeback, and MacGyver's got one locked and loaded.
Gosh, Quail, and all this time I thought you were just scum.
Not the wittiest retort I ever heard, but I guess you can't argue with results.
This one's free of charge.
Okay. A little random. Was MacGyver making people pay money for beatings up until now? Whatever. Karen unloads Quail's Uzi and reaffirms that she was still on MacGyver's side the whole time, and then we wipe to a bit later, and Pete's back on his feet and talking to someone on the phone, telling them that they found out who the mole was in the organization. Quail. I mean, technically it was Karen, but I guess her babyface turn is protecting her from facing any consequences for working with an unhinged terrorist who nearly killed everyone. Mrs. Chung wakes up and she has no idea what's been happening. She's like, "Where were we before I was drugged while trying to flee?" MacGyver's like, "Just go back to sleep. The episode's over." The end! Deathlock isn't just the episode where the show found its voice. It's one of the defining episodes of the entire series. If someone who had never seen MacGyver before wanted to know why I like it so much, this is one of the episodes I would consider showing them because it represents so many aspects of the show that I love. More than representative, the episode is also exceptional in one very important way. A recurring flaw of the series for all 7 seasons, but particularly in the early years, was weak villains. The bad guys MacGyver faces off against tend to be either run-of-the-mill warlord mercenary types or generic evil guys in suits. There are deviations from that norm, of course. There are a few truly outstanding MacGyver villains, and we meet the first of them in this episode. Quail. Initially, he seems to be just another evil guy in a suit. However, it becomes obvious very soon that he has much more to offer. His methods are so over the top, and his personality is so emphatic and florid that he easily stands out from the pack of bland series villains. Pretty much all of this is to the credit of Christopher Neame, the actor who plays Quail. Neame shows up all over TV throughout the 1980s and 90s, and he's always a memorable presence, but I consider his turn as Quail to be his magnum opus. He seems to innately grasp what kind of show this is and what is required of him as an actor, and then he over-delivers on that requirement. Everything he does feels calculated for maximum camp effect. The way his mouth twitches, the way he smirks, his overpowering smugness, his voracious devouring of all the scenery in sight. The part of Quail is nothing special as written, but Neame throws himself into even the most unremarkable lines and turns them into unforgettable moments through the sheer force of his performance.
I give the orders, my girl.
And I'm ordering you to the trophy room.
You can get the roll of film from Thornton there.
Now get going before MacGyver gets there.
See, even dry, functional dialogue can be fun if you get a giant ham to act the fucking shit out of it. Just look at this shot of him walking down the hallway to confront MacGyver at the end of the episode. The expression on his face, the state of his hair. He is so utterly unhinged. I don't know how anyone can watch that and not be absolutely delighted. Christopher Neame guest stars in other MacGyver episodes after this, but this is his only appearance as Quail. Despite being a one-off character, some of Quayle's traits were transferred to the character of Murdoch, who went on to become MacGyver's arch-nemesis. Like Quayle, Murdoch's conflict with MacGyver is personal and rooted in his sense of professionalism and wounded pride. For both Quayle and Murdoch, MacGyver is the only adversary they've never been able to defeat. Quayle and Murdoch also share a fascination with cameras and with setting elaborate traps, and they both work for shadowy organizations led by people who literally sit in the shadows. In addition to Quayle, we've also got Pete! MacGyver's boss and soon-to-be best friend Pete Thornton, played with genial cluelessness by Dana Elcar, is sidelined for most of the episode after being rendered unconscious by Quayle, but before that happens, we get a good sense of his relationship with MacGyver. It's almost a divorced dad and son energy between them. Pete is older and is nominally in charge, but as long as MacGyver's around, he's the one really setting the agenda. Usually in episodes where MacGyver and Pete get in trouble together, Pete falls into the Watson role. He's present to not understand what MacGyver is doing and ask questions so that MacGyver can explain it to him and we in the audience can understand. But for most of the episode, that duty falls not to Pete, who spends a lot of this one taking a nap on the floor, but to Karen, a character so ridiculous that only a show like MacGyver could get away with having her. So Karen is an American government agent who is secretly working with Quayle because the people who hired Quayle to get that microfilm and kill MacGyver have also abducted Karen's brother and are holding him to compel her cooperation. Karen cooperates with Quayle, reluctantly, but she's not just reluctant because she's betraying her country, she's also reluctant because she's uncomfortable with Quayle's methods. Fair enough, I guess, but the way Karen's reluctance is depicted in the episode makes her come across as extremely naive. Like, too naive to have the job she's supposed to have. In the first season of the show, MacGyver and Pete don't work for the Phoenix Foundation, they work for the US government, specifically the Department of External Services, or the DXS, which is basically the CIA. Karen works for the DXS as well, and in an important enough position that it was worth it for the bad guys to nab her brother to pressure her into becoming their mole, and yet she's shocked when Quayle tells her he intends to kill MacGyver. This possibility never occurred to her? What fictionalized version of the CIA has she been working for? Also, she apparently believed that all she would have to do was be Quayle's sidekick for this one job, and then the bad guys would let her brother go? An international criminal organization gets irresistible leverage on an American intelligence agent, and they're just gonna give it up after they take care of their stolen microfilm problem? Okay, Karen. Wendy Shaw, the actor who plays Karen, is a familiar face if you watched a lot of 1980s American TV, like I did, and do. She made the rounds. Besides MacGyver, she also showed up in episodes of Knight Rider and The A-Team and Murder, She Wrote, and she was in movies as well, Inner Space, The Burbs. She has a difficult job to do in making Karen likable, and she actually mostly pulls it off, navigating her character's inexplicable innocence and bouts of self-pity, and ending up coming across as sympathetic, more or less. Of course, it doesn't hurt that she gets her own chance to play to the cheap seats.
They've got my brother!
Yeah, now you're on MacGyver, baby! You know how sometimes in these videos I'll say, yeah, it's a cheesy show and it isn't great overall, but here are one or two examples of some really solid storytelling or filmmaking in this episode? Well, I'm not going to say that this time. Deathlock is an all-time classic MacGyver episode because it embodies the show's goofy, nonsensical, so bad it's good sensibility. Not because it secretly has excellent writing in a few spots. On a scene-by-scene basis, character motivations often make no sense whatsoever. A prime example is when Mac, Pete, and Karen head to the kitchen relatively early on. After MacGyver jams Quayle's video signal by turning on all the appliances, they plot their next move. Pete says, I can call for help on my radio phone if I can get to it without Quayle watching. But why wouldn't Quayle be watching? He can't see what's happening in the kitchen, but his cameras everywhere else in the house are working fine. MacGyver and Karen do nothing to draw Quayle's attention away from Pete. Pete just leaves the kitchen and walks into the library in full view of Quayle's cameras after it's been clearly established that the heroes know Quayle has the entire house under surveillance. What is Pete doing? Then, after Pete gets taken out, we cut back to Karen and Mac in the kitchen, and Karen's like, I guess it's my turn to go distract Quayle. Since when is distracting Quayle the mission here? I know that, as it turns out, Karen is only making an excuse to leave the kitchen so she can go talk to Quayle in person, but MacGyver just goes along with it. Like, yep, distracting Quayle. That's what we're doing. Why do they need to distract Quayle by leaving the kitchen to go do stuff? MacGyver has turned the kitchen into a dead zone in Quayle's surveillance network, and as soon as Karen leaves, he gets to work building his motorized cart, which he uses to distract Quayle. Why wouldn't he just have Karen and Pete help him with that? There don't seem to be any death traps or motion-controlled machine guns in the kitchen. Just stay there. MacGyver's battery-powered decoy cart is just one of several inventions he busts out in this episode. As is typical of the show's first season, this one is packed with MacGyverisms. There's the coffin jet ski convertible in the opening gambit, tipping the suit of armor out the front door to trigger the automatic guns, the baking soda and vinegar smoke screen, using the piled up metal ducting to block Quayle's path and force him to walk in a certain direction, and there's more depending on how loosely you want to define MacGyverism. He uses his Swiss Army knife to tap around the front doorknob to test it for booby traps, but does that count? That's the equivalent of, like, holding your hand over a frying pan to see if it's hot enough. Is that a MacGyverism? Are you doing a MacGyverism when you press on your steak to see if it's done properly? Is that what we're doing? Is that the standard? One of the most appealing aspects of MacGyver's character that this episode highlights is how low-tech he is. Yes, he's a genius. Yes, he's a brilliant inventor, but his inventions are all pulled together in a hurry from stuff that happens to be lying around nearby. Except for that jet ski in the opening gambit. That was obviously manufactured professionally to specifications. They even matched the wood grain of the coffin, but that one makes sense because MacGyver is on assignment. His government sent him to do a job, and they equipped him with the tools he needed to do it. James Bond gets a bulletproof Aston Martin with front-mounted machine guns and an ejector seat, and MacGyver gets a coffin that turns into a jet ski. Same thing. In Death Wish, the conflict isn't brains versus brawn, but brains versus brains. The difference is Quayle's weapons are all high-tech, video surveillance, motion-controlled machine guns, electrified traps. He spends almost the entire episode sitting at a control panel, flipping switches and watching monitors. MacGyver, by contrast, is hands-on. Quayle's operation is meticulously planned. He tells the triumvirate at the beginning that he has anticipated everything. His scheme is perfect in every detail. MacGyver is improvisational, thinking on his feet. He doesn't anticipate, he reacts and adjusts in the moment, something Quayle isn't very good at. And ultimately, because he's smarter, because he's quicker on his feet, but mostly because it's his show, MacGyver's way proves to be superior, and he wins, which comes as quite a surprise to Quayle. Look how shocked he is. Oh, this one's free of charge, because he just got electrocuted. Ah! Oh, that's pretty good. It took me a minute, but I got it. Eventually. Unlike geometry.